we're going to get started in just a moment with our program. I know it's hard to stop talking, especially when you're having a good time. I hate to cut into the fun. But it's so nice to have you all here. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR maven, and it's so great to have you all here to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the PR Maven podcast. And we have some of our wonderful guests who've been on the podcast. Lisa DeSisto, who came in her brand colors. I so appreciate. She's also, everybody wore orange. Hats off to the people. And orange is the color of enthusiasm. So we love enthusiasm. Oh, yeah. Elaine. She didn't even know what she was doing, but she did the right thing. So I have to say, I've been doing public relations for many, many years, a long time. But podcasting has given me a whole breath of fresh air. I just feel like podcasting, it's kind of, I think, something that might have been made for me. A little bit like social media. I can now be social 24/7. And podcasting allows me to have really great conversations with people. You make small talk with people, but on a podcast, you can really ask a lot of probing questions, which, of course, because I'm kind of curious, I like to ask those questions and have a really great conversation. And I think people have been enjoying listening to it, and it's really amazing where all the listeners have been coming from. It's one of the things I like about podcasting, too, is you can actually look at a map. And, Greg, how many countries? 30? 20 countries around the world we have listeners, which is really remarkable, I think. So thank you. If anyone is here from a foreign country, I want to thank you. So one of the best things I think about branding is building a tribe of brand ambassadors. So because you're here, you are all now members of PR Maven Nation, whether you knew it or not, but I want to thank you for being part of PR Maven Nation. That's awesome. And if you're not part of the PR Maven Nation Facebook, please do log in tonight and sign up for that. And also, we do a daily Alexa flash briefing, and Greg here can tell you about how to sign up for that, too. You have to go into the skills and enable it if you have an Alexa device. How many people have an Alexa device at home? An Alexa. Yeah. Well, if you have an Alexa and you haven't enabled the daily flash briefing, Greg can tell you how to do that. So we are going to, in a moment, start the actual podcast with Lieutenant Tim Cotton, who came all the way down from Bangor, Maine, by Jesus. I don't know why I feel like I have to talk in a Maine accent when I talk about Bangor, Maine, but and he brought an entourage of bodyguards because, he does have so many raving fans that he does need to be protected at all times, probably mostly for people like me. Just kidding. Not really. I'm sorry. Tanner told me to be careful about my laugh because in the microphone on the podcast it kind of goes booming, so I have to calm myself down. So I'm going to take a moment and sit down and dial it back a little bit, and we're going to start our live podcast. So Lieutenant Tim Cotton, if you'd like to come up and take the guest chair here, and then we're going to just start in a moment here. Lieutenant Tim Cotton from the Bangor Police Department is actually the first guest to appear on the PR Maven podcast 2 times. So that is just his very first claim to fame, but he has a lot of claims to fame.
Proud moment.
The more he hangs around me, he's going to have even more.
Got to be careful.
So Tim's humor and knowledge of Facebook have made him a great guest. And as you may know, the whole premise of the PR Maven podcast is that you need to build a community of raving fans, like all of you who are here tonight. And you need to do it both I'm so glad Maureen is right up front, because her smile just makes me feel good. Thank you, Maureen. So the more that you engage with your fans, both in person and online, the better. And here we have the opportunity to be face-to-face, which I think is great. The first time that we recorded a podcast, it was at Husson University.
Yes, yeah, it was a great time.
Yes, it was.
Back room up there somewhere.
So I want to welcome Tim. I'm going to read his bio now. Lieutenant Tim Cotton from the Bangor Police Department is a 22-year veteran officer with a fondness for the upholding of the law and a sense of humor. His father was a police officer, and he came off the beat in 1963. And Tim didn't follow in his father's footsteps at first. Instead, he worked in radio, hosting local morning shows and writing newspaper articles. He sought out police work later in life compared to most officers. He had the inclination to go into law enforcement in the 1980s and hasn't looked back since. His strong communication skills and background are what have led him to his unique position today. In addition to his roles with the department, he is most well known for managing the Bangor Police Department's Facebook page. And if you aren't following him already, you certainly are going to start following him tonight. And actually, we have some fans that came from out of state. Is that true? Yes, because of his...
Thank you.
And actually, as Charlene Williams will tell you, when he went to a tourism show, there was such a long line of people wanting his autograph that it clogged up the whole trade show. The other exhibitors were very mad.
They were a little upset because they obviously a mope from Maine showing up, wrecked everything. But we had a good time and met some nice people. I got free cheese from Cabot, so shout out to Cabot Cheese, Vermont. There you go.
I guess free cheese from Cabot made it worthwhile. Of course, that's Vermont cheese. So.
Well, yeah, but there's growers of their cows here in Maine too.
Oh, okay. So I guess their cheese is all right then, as long as it comes from Maine cows. So Lieutenant Tim Cotton's posts, which range from retellings of some emergency calls the department receives to photos of the famous Duck of Justice mascot, are comedic musings often written in a stream of consciousness, tongue-in-cheek manner. And actually, he brought with him tonight the traveling Duck of Justice, which is a wooden duck here, which he can tell us more about.
It's bizarre, as is the whole story of the duck. But what happened was our duck was destroyed by so many people fondling it for several years. So we had to have him redone, and after he was redone, the taxidermist who did the work said he wouldn't do it unless we stopped people from touching it, and because oils from the skin and so on. So we decided so many people wanted to see the duck in other places that we were looking for a carved duck, and the janitor walks up and says, "Hey, I carve ducks." And it's that bizarre. And I'm like, "No, well, thanks, Charles," and he said, "Well, I'll bring in my book tomorrow, and I'll show you what I've done." And the guy's a world-class duck carver. It happened to be in our back closet with a broom. So he did this out of a chunk of wood. That's one solid chunk of wood. He does incredible stuff, sells it all over the world. And we had a duck carver just by chance at the agency. So he built this duck for us. It's been all over the world to Europe, and it's been busted up. But we've had it repaired with a cast, and we take him places, and he comes off. If you need to hold him, feel free. No real feathers. Everything there was carved by hand, so it's quite a treat.
You can have a selfie with the traveling Duck of Justice after.
Just tag us in it.
Well, actually, when we did our first podcast episode, I'm not allowed to laugh because it will ruin the audio. But I did have a pet duck when I was growing up, and. I loved the pet duck. The duck's name was Panda. And if you know me, Mr. John Rizzo is here. He knows that I'm a great swimmer. I do love to swim. And the duck used to swim, on my stomach. And it was a really good companion. But
This is more bizarre than our duck story.
We had an electric fence in my backyard because I did have a pet horse also, but the duck bit the electric fence. So it's not funny.
It is. Not until you start laughing, it isn't it?
It's very sad. My duck got electrocuted.
It's a sad story.
Yeah, it is. It's not funny. I'm not supposed to laugh. But because Lieutenant Tim Cotton makes me laugh, I just... In any case, yeah, my duck actually looked a little bit like this one. Yeah.
Before the fence.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So I'm going to ask you a few questions about the phenomenon you've created with the Bangor Police Department Facebook. You've created an enormous online community on Facebook centered around the Duck of Justice and kindness, which is your theme, and the daily challenges and opportunities at the Bangor Police Department. You broke all the rules. Like people said, don't write a lot of text.
Absolutely.
And make sure to use a lot of photos and video, and you didn't.
None.
You just did what you thought was the right thing, and it has worked. Yeah. So what was your intention when you started out, and how has that changed, and how do you know it's working?
Well, the bottom line was I didn't really want the job to begin with, but it came with the job that I took as a public information officer. So after we took over, and one of the jobs of the public information officer is to obviously update the Facebook page. So I started doing it, and I thought it was boring, and it was. And so I talked to the police chief, and he acquiesced that I could do what I wanted as long as I didn't talk about politics or religion, and that was an obvious, faux pas. So I just started writing it in stream of consciousness and doing what I wanted to do, and writing posts that were extremely long with a lot of commas, no pictures, and it took off. It took off immediately. I just think we came in at a time when police were not well-loved. Not that we're well-loved today, don't get me wrong, but maybe it's better than it was in 2014. So we just tried to tell our story and take the narrative back and do it ourselves instead of letting the media do it. And so we did, and that's what we did. So it took off. It immediately started working, and I was seeing huge increases weekly, 1,000, 2,000 more likes a week, on the page, and then NPR picked us up for Morning Edition on the 4th of July because I had written something completely stupid, but they liked it, and they asked me to read it to patriotic music for Morning Edition. I said, yeah, whatever you want. So we did that, and that really got the ball rolling. NPR kind of took us from 10,000 to 20,000 likes in the course of maybe a week and a half. And the ball just kept going. So I just kept doing the same thing. I got a lot of calls from professionals in social media that said I was doing it wrong. And I said, okay, then, have a great day. Thanks for calling. But they said, don't write so long and more pictures, and you're just carrying on too long. And I said, well, how many likes does your page have? Because that's all. I didn't even know algorithms. I didn't know about anything about it. I just said, well, every week we get 1,000 more likes, and it works, so I'm going to keep doing it.
You got rhythm.
Yeah, it never stopped, so that's where we're at. We're at almost 300. We're a little over 300,000 followers, but...
you are what we call an influencer.
Maybe. Obviously...
Like the Kardashians.
Similar. Very similar to the Kardashians. Except anyway.
You probably don't have as many outfits.
I definitely don't, no. And Kanye does not follow. So anyway, it's worked for us, and I didn't change what I was doing, and we've had a lot of calls. A lot of people were very interested to tell me I was doing it wrong, and I said, okay, thanks. Again, thanks for your info. I did take their advice, or at least I listened. But I did not see any reason to stop doing what we were doing. And it works to this day. So,
right. And didn't your wife go to a conference and ask the keynote speaker?
Yeah. She was in Chicago for a social media conference, and she showed the influencer there that this is a page my husband writes. What do you think? And he said, oh, my gosh, it's horrible. And she said, well, okay. Well, she said they're growing quite quickly. And he said, well, it'll stop because it's too long, not enough pictures. Tell him no one has the attention span for that. but apparently they do. So the following year, she was there again and showed him that we were at 100,000. And he said, well, I don't understand it. And that's all he should have said at the beginning, because no one really does. You don't understand it. You might think you understand it, but truthfully, neither do I. But we had success with what we did, so we didn't change it. And I think that sometimes we listen to too many people and let it, take away our buzz, so to speak. And I didn't let them do that.
Well, they say that you should listen to your audience, because your audience will tell you what they want. And every time they shared and commented.
Right. And we don't have trolls. We don't have a lot of trolls. We don't have a lot of negativity.
Yeah.
If you were looking for an audience of women between 25 and 64, we own it. 78% of our followers are in those brackets. And men don't really. A fellow told me once, well, men don't read anyway, so you don't expect to get men. I said, okay, well, I'll just keep writing and see what happens. There we are today. So we've done a lot of great things with it and had a good time.
Yeah, you certainly have. Yeah, you've created quite a phenomenon. Where do you hope to go with it in the future?
I hope to retire from it anytime they let me go. When I get a chance, I'm going to walk away from it. Is what I'm going to do.
I don't think your audience is going to let that happen.
Well, I opened my own page, and because I wanted to do some different writing, and I was using some of that stuff on our page, some things that maybe weren't police related. It did well on our page, so I took it away, and so I have a writing page now, and that's where about 35,000 there. So I opened that in December of 18. So we're at 35,000. We gained maybe 500, 300 to 500 a week. And so we've had good success with that. And that's where I try to put some of the more things that aren't related to law enforcement. I write there.
And you write early in the morning, don't you?
Yep. I get up about 4 and I write at home. I usually just I watch the news for 10 minutes because that's all I can handle. And then I write. And I usually look for, maybe a big event around the country that we can relate to us or to our state or our agency or law enforcement. And I try to expound a little bit on whatever I see, but I try to do it from the eyes of how we see it here in Maine. I promote Maine pretty heavily. I'd say I promote Maine better than most people do because I think I tell the truth about Maine, and I don't mind accepting our flaws. I love it. I love the state. I love all areas of the state, and so I really try to promote Maine businesses when I can. If they find a way to sneak in with a duck, I try to get them on the page because I think it's nice to promote our businesses and our all that we have to offer here. So I've used the page to, do as much good as I could for the state and for our agency. So.
And you've created a museum, right?
Well, our museum was there, but no one was coming to the museum. So we put the duck in the museum, and we had a real uptick, obviously, in folks because we have literally we're having probably 5,000 or 6,000 visitors a year to our museum to see the duck, the real duck. This is the wooden duck. The real duck is still under an old aquarium we found on Birch Street in the museum. And so we have people like today. 4 ladies from Oklahoma flew in to meet me and see the duck. Had their picture taken. They're here. They're going to Helen's and Machias, and they're going to have pie because I sent them there. And I said, and I sent them to Millinocket to see the changing of the leaves, and so they came to Maine just for that trip. And
I think you could replace Thomas Cook Travel that just went out of business.
Maybe. We could probably get like an old Horizon, an 82 Horizon, and drive people around in it and do better than they did. But anyway. So it's kind of an interesting aside for me, and it's enjoyable, and the folks have loved it. And I'm working on the book comes out in the spring of 2020, and we're with Down East Publishing, and so I'm going to get that finished before end of November, and so we've got all kinds of cool things that have happened because of it. But again, going to travel shows and promoting the state's been great. It's an interesting, little hiccup in the trip.
And I understand our governor is a big fan and
big
follower.
Fan. She has several sweatshirts. Yeah, she does follow the page, and she's been up with the duck a few times. When she was the AG, I was running criminal investigation division at the time, and she oversaw homicides in the state. So we had some good conversations about different things, and she really was a promoter of our page and how we how we wrote it and what we did with it. And she's been up a few times. She brings visitors up to have their pictures with the duck, and she wears our sweatshirts when she has a chance to get them on TV. And she's been a great promoter. Janet Mills has really been a good friend with the duck. FOD. You can be an FOD as well.
I think you've got a lot of FODs here.
And other things. But,
that's right.
Yeah.
Have you thought about expanding into Instagram or Snapchat? Or...
I can't write anything short. So I stay away from Twitter. I'd kill it. And I have a Twitter account I've never posted. Our chief does our Twitter updates when he has a chance. Instagram. There's only so many pictures. I like the pictures. What I do is put the pictures of folks that come to see the duck. So that's the photos. Those are the photos I use. Plus, like in the spring, in the fall, when the lobstermen start taking pictures of great sunsets, they'll send them to me from all over the state, and then they have a little war with who has the best lobster boat sunset. So I throw those fellows and ladies on, and so I just do it. I do whatever feels good at the time, and I don't really have a plan. And that's the truth. There's no plan, and I just write. So that's what we do. And I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you the secret, but I don't know it. So.
I know, because we spend all our time saying you must have a content marketing strategy.
We've had that. Yeah. Well, I mean, it probably would work for some people, and
right.
Our strategy was have none, and that's still a strategy.
Right, I guess so.
So that's what we do. And, the guys and ladies of the department have embraced it for a while, but they don't want to be shown off. They don't like going out and have people screaming, "Where's the duck?" That's what they hear at an arrest, someone screaming about the duck. And so the duck has taken on a personality of its own, and it's problematic if you're trying to be serious with someone and they just want to know about the duck. So, yeah.
So at an arrest, people have asked about the duck?
Absolutely. Oh. We had some ladies, second year, some ladies had gone to the Queens of the Stone Age concert, and they showed up at the department drunk, and they wanted to see the duck. Well, the sergeant at the time who was there let them have the duck, because the duck at that time was mobile and not covered. Well, it got put in places where it probably shouldn't have, and inappropriate photos with the ladies from the concert, as you can imagine. And so after that, we thought,
this is a G-rated podcast.
We have to be careful. I didn't say where they put it, and that's for you to decide. But the photos were racy, at least. And so anyway, we don't just pass the duck around anymore, obviously.
I'm speechless.
You killed your duck. No, there's been work. So we have a pretty good grip on it now, so to speak. It's behind glass doors. You have to get a pass to go in. It's free. 24 hours a day you can come see the duck. But you have to get a pass, and it's cameras so no one can steal the duck. Because firemen kind of have a jealousy issue about having an agency with a duck, and no one cares about their Dalmatian anymore. So anyway, that said, they've always threatened to steal the duck and kidnap the duck. But it's not, again, they sleep at night, and so there's no issue. We haven't lost a duck yet.
So firefighters are...
Our firefighters.
Oh, the Bangor
guys.
Yeah, they're having a little duck envy issue.
I didn't say it, you did, but yes.
Hashtag
yes.
duck envy.
They've been good sports, but they've threatened on many occasions to kidnap the duck. So.
Wow, I bet that would be on page 1 of the Bangor Daily News. If
it
not,
should be.
Perhaps all the other
it should be.
news. Where's Lisa DeSisto here from Masthead Media? So, well, anyway, hopefully that won't happen.
We're hoping, yeah.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to others who want to start an online community if they were just getting started?
I'd say stick with the values that you have, and don't expect the big gain. Don't expect the big gains we had. I'll tell you why, because that's changed. The algorithms and how Facebook delivers your message now is not as... We came in at the good time. I don't see... As a matter of fact, I can tell that they throttle us back heavily now. We don't pay. We won't pay to send anything out. My personal writing page grows much faster. Once you get up to a point and you have enough followers... what Facebook does is wants money. I mean, that they make money, and that's okay. But we don't have any money to give them. So the fact of the matter is that at some point you just don't grow like that anymore. And I don't see it. It's not available to us either. It's kind of sad because I liked it when it was growing organically. But they want promotional money, and they want to put your money behind things to have it seen. So I would say that stick with your message, yes, but make sure your message is interesting enough to read, and it doesn't always have to be about a specific thing. Sometimes it's okay to just write something else, and we did, and it worked. I can't say it'll work for somebody else. I don't know. I wish I had the secret because I'd be in business, but I don't have the secret anymore. I just feel like if you write something interesting, regardless of what the content is, I think people will come and read it. And the humor, of course, works well, but not always. And there's no guarantees. So,
have you ever woken up and just not had any inspiration?
One of the biggest posts I ever wrote was, I got nothing. I think I had like 10,000 likes on it. I said, because it was true, and I wrote it. I said, I got nothing. And that's exactly how I wrote it, and it took off and got shared widely, which I think is a good post. People say, well, that guy's being honest. I think we all, working with social media, some days you've got nothing, and I don't mind. But if I don't see 4,000 or 5,000 likes on a post, I really don't feel like it worked. But that's not true. But that's, in my mind, I've had luck enough to have some success in seeing some big posts and some viral stuff. But you never know when it's going to go viral either. It just has to be the right time. It's more difficult now to do it than it was, again, 5 years ago. But I think you just have to stick with the message you want. If you're selling a product, I'm not selling anything but jail. So there's nothing I can, they come because they want to read it, and they're not gaining anything, and I'm not making any money based on it. We've had some good success selling our Duck of Justice T-shirts, and that's been kind of a nice thing. I can't tell. If you knew how many we sold, it would scare you. But
I'm curious.
I think probably close to 100,000.
Wow.
So those shirts, we get a small stipend from each shirt because the lady who produces them for us, Logo Motion and Brewer, she sells the shirts, but she makes a donation of the profits back to our community relations account. So that's been it's been really nice. So that's been a financial gain for our agency. We'd never have seen any outside money like that. So we've used it to put towards community relation events, bike helmets for kids, pens and pencils, badge stickers, and we have plenty. And so that's how we've replenished that account. It's kind of a different way for an agency to, we can't really raise money as police officers, but someone else sold the T-shirts but gave us the profits as a donation. So it's been kind of a good relationship with the business, and it's great for them too,
Well, that wraps up our podcast episode for this week, and I want to thank Lieutenant Tim Cotton for coming to Portland to Rising Tide Brewery, and we're here for the first anniversary of the PR Maven podcast. And if any of our listeners have any suggestions for future episodes, or if you want me to have Lieutenant Tim Cotton back again,
It's doubtful. I think we've had our run. Once they find out you killed a duck, I'm not sure we can get together again. Not purposely, of course, but
I couldn't control it. But this podcast is presented by Marshall Communications, which is the creator of the 65-step Marshall Plan process. And you can learn more about the Marshall Plan at marshallpr.com, where we actually create content marketing strategies for our clients, which are generally a good thing to have.
Absolutely.
Present company excluded. But I want to remind people about Alexa that we do have a daily Alexa flash briefing, and you can enable the skill and play the daily flash briefing. For example, after this podcast, I will create a little summary that will be part of the daily flash briefing. Maybe someday you'll have a podcast too.
I have one.
You had one?
Yeah, I know I have one now. Yeah, I have one. It's not as good as yours. So
What is your podcast called?
It's at blower.com. It's called Cotton Blend by Blower. You do it for a police uniform company out of Massachusetts, and it's available on their website. We do it about once every 3 weeks, and there's snippets and stories from the page and my page. And it's a nice thing to check out.
We'll put a link to that in the show notes
Have
then
at
prmaven.com. And I want to thank everyone for joining us here in person and all of the listeners, and have a great week, PR Maven Nation.
Thank you.